Alright, so this video is a follow-up to my American Dream Mall video. If you want to hear the story of how I got myself to Allentown after getting stranded in New Jersey for a little bit, check out the previous video. But this video is going to be about my experience at Dorney, which went a lot smoother. So I get up about 20 minutes before the park opens. You know, I'm a quick to get out of bed, quick to get ready kind of guy. And I take my Uber, and I'm talking to the Uber driver, and he's telling me like, yeah, so you selected the staff entrance when you booked the Uber, and I'm like, oh god, and I'm getting flashbacks to Carowinds. And he's like, so I assume you don't want me to drop you off at the staff entrance, right? And I'm like, yes, thank you, please do not do that. Um, and if you want context for that Carowinds thing, watch my South Trip video. Um, but yeah, so he takes me to the front of the park, drops me off, and my immediate first impression is that the entrance kind of looks like Six Flags New England, in a good way. It's got that nice like colonial building. It's kind of small. I don't often see huge lines coming out the front of a park entrance, and I'm thinking like, oh, maybe I'm in for a busy day. But I could even tell at that point there was only like 2 security lines running, so the lines were long, but there weren't necessarily a lot of people in them. And it also seemed like a lot of them were going to the water park, based on the amount of coolers and swimsuits and all that I saw. So I was thinking like, okay, maybe it's like a medium busy day. So my strategy is I'm gonna go straight to the back of the park, get on Iron Menace, and go from there. I'm thinking like, it's the newest coaster. It seems to get a longer line than some of the other ones. I should have gone straight to Wild Mouse, but like, whatever. It didn't make a huge difference. So I go straight to Iron Menace, get on. It's a walk on. There's nobody waiting for the ride at all. And I choose the back row because, why not? I think the grouper might have told me to go for the back row. But I was planning to get on the front row at some point too, because I like to ride the front row and the back row on dives. Sometimes the back row is better for the forces, sometimes the front row is better for the visuals. So I got my first ride on the back row, and it was ridiculously rough. And I was still feeling a little worn down from the previous day, like mentally, physically. So starting off my day at Dorney Park with a really rough ride on Iron Menace was maybe not the move. But aside from the roughness, I did enjoy the ride. This is my first like small scale, with the smaller track gauge and the lower capacity B&M dive model. I'm used to the Griffins, Yukon Strikers, Val Ravens. Those are my most commonly ridden dives. So this one was kind of new for me. And it's definitely, the compactness of it, I think actually works in its favor in the layout. It doesn't quite have the airtime that a ride like Griffin has, but I actually like the smaller size of the inversions. It feels better paced, and that you still get like a little bit of hang time on some of the inversions, which is good. I like that. I like the hang time, but you're still getting through them. You're not really chugging through anything like you can on Yukon or Valraven. And the first 2 inversions especially are really good. I enjoy the pullout on the first inversion is pretty crazy in terms of positive G's, and the second inversion is really fun too. Then you kind of get to the middle of the ride, and what's left is whatever the inclined loop thing is. Cool. Definitely better than how it is on Rougarou, and it's cool to have like a unique element like that. It doesn't necessarily give strong laterals or positives. It's kind of the worst of both worlds of a loop and a helix, but like visually it's cool. You're going at it at a weird angle, and that it's something memorable about the layout at least. And then there's that one more inversion, and then you hit the brakes. You hit that airtime hill coming into the brakes. That is like, it has the biggest jerk that I've ever felt on a B&M. I'm usually the guy who's saying like, I don't feel the B&M rattle. I really don't. Like the Florida coasters, everyone complains about, Phoenix Rising, Penguin Trek, all that. I didn't feel a single bit of rattle on those rides, but I felt it on Iron Menace, more so than even on Rapterra. Um, so yeah, it's definitely the weakest dive coaster I've been on. Um, Even if it wasn't for the roughness, I would say it's probably one of the weaker layouts. But for what it's worth, it was still fun. It did end up being my least favorite B&M at the park, so we'll get to the other ones in a bit. So I got off Iron Menace, and I was feeling a little shaken, so I'm gonna make my way back to Steel Force, because my plan is to get on everything once and then start going for re-rides. So I'm making my way to Steel Force, get on the ride. I'm thinking, like, I've heard everything online about this ride, that it's just, like, okay. It's not as good as, like, a Phantom's Revenge, or even some of the other ground-up Morgan Hypers, like Ultimo Escape. And, yeah, so, like, I get on it. I'm not expecting too much. I'm certainly not expecting an elite roller coaster. But you crest the first drop. The airtime hills are weirdly profiled, definitely Magnum-esque, where you're kind of coasting over a ramp for most of the hill, and then you hit the crest, and it's triangular, and it just hits you with crazy airtime. Not quite to Magnum's level, where it's giving you like brutal ejector. This is more of a flow ejector, if not just straight floater, at least for the first couple elements in Camelbacks. But it has that similar feeling of ramping into a drop and then hitting you with all the force all at once, instead of dispersing it evenly like you would expect from like a B&M Hyper Camelback. So there's a couple of those big Camelbacks, and the valley of them is like super forceful with positives. Then you hit the turnaround, and you get a nice pop of airtime into the turnaround, and you're going down this gigantic downhill and then a little bit uphill helix. Super terrainy, interacting with like the back of the park, gives you nice views of the area outside the park, and kind of dives you through the water. Got pretty good chopper moments with the supports. I definitely saw people putting their hands down because they got scared during the helix, and it was a smooth, comfortable helix. It tracked really well, and it pulled crazy positive forces over a long period of time. So honestly, one of my favorite helixes I've ever experienced. A great turnaround in general. And then the transition out of it into the finale is kind of rough, but like, well, I guess into the mid-course. Yeah, that's around where the mid-course is. There's a little jerk where we transitioned from helix track to straight airtime track, and that part's like not my favorite. That's like the only complaint I have about the ride, though. Then you hit the mid-course, slows you down a fair bit, and then you go straight into the final run of airtime hills. And these airtime hills, oh my fucking god, they're so good. It's like, okay, it's not Magnum, but also for some people that's going to be a good thing. It doesn't destroy your thighs like Magnum does, but what it does do is it lifts you up out of your seat. There's a huge amount of room between you and the lap bar, and I would describe what I was feeling as standing airtime. Like, my feet weren't necessarily even on the ground, my butt was well out of the seat, and especially going into the tunnel. And then each airtime hill as you approach the end of the ride just gets progressively more and more aggressive and sharply profiled into the final one, into the like final breaks. That's almost a double up, I want to say, and my god, it just slams you up and then slams you back down. It's so fun. Not even remotely painful. This is all like super comfortable, floaty, graceful ejector. And it's just one of the best finales I've ever experienced on a coaster. It's like Magnum if Magnum was a little bit calmer and a little bit more fun in the finale, as opposed to, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, ow, 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 ow. But, and I have those experiences and I'll walk off loving Magnum, but this ride is so much more re-rideable. So I ended up loving Steel Force, and I'm really excited to eventually get on all the other Morgan Hypers out there, if they're all that good or better. Especially Wild One, I've heard really good things about, and Mamba. Of course, Superman is the top of my list there. I love Phantom's Revenge. I don't think this coaster is that far from Phantom's Revenge in quality. Phantom's Revenge is definitely better, but like, for what it is, this is nearly as good. So yeah, Steel Force, amazing. 10 out of 10. way better than I was expecting. So then I head off to Thunderhawk, and I have a bit of a problem finding Thunderhawk. The layout of the back of Dorney is a little bit confusing. I kind of do a lap around the majority of the layout around Thunderhawk, thinking, well, you know, the layout's here, so the ride must also be here. And then I finally found the lift hill, and I traced it back to the station, and I'm like, oh, that's where it is. But I get on Thunderhawk. It's, of the super old wooden coasters that I've been on, it's probably my favorite between the Jackrabbits at Kennywood and Seabreeze and this one. Maybe tied with Kennywood's Jackrabbit, because there's nothing on Thunderhawk that's as good as Kennywood Jackrabbit's Double Down. But aside from that, that ride has like nothing, whereas Thunderhawk actually has a pretty complete layout. The airtime hills aren't necessarily doing much, as they don't on Jackrabbit at Seabreeze, but there are two like twisted drops. One is the first drop at the start of the ride, and the other one comes later on, and it's super fun. But aside from that, like, not super memorable. It's a little bit rough, but like not painful in any way. Mostly walked away just like wishing that the airtime hills had a little bit more airtime to them. But it's not a bad coaster at all for its age, and it has, of the three, definitely the most ambitious layout. So I can respect it for that much, at least, and for being as old as it is and still sticking around. So glad that Thunderhawk is still around. It's definitely like a good first coaster for kids and a good ride to grow up on if you're a local. So then I headed out from that, and I went to go ride. I think this is the point in the day where I was starting to track like Talon, Possessed, and Demon Drop, because they were all closed for the first couple hours, and I was really trying to get on them, like especially Talon, because I'd heard so many good things. And at this point, all three of them had opened up. So naturally I went to Hydra, because it was on the way to Talon, so I figured I might as well. So I go up to there, I get on Hydra, and it's a walk-on, as pretty much everything so far this day has been. Thunderhawk and Steel Force were walk-ons too. They were actually sending half-empty trains, or less than half-empty trains, on Steel Force in particular, so pretty quiet day so far. But yeah, I get on Hydra. I'm not expecting too much. Like, I'm at the point where I can enjoy a B&M floorless, but it's not my favorite ride model. Pretty far from it, actually. My highest ranked B&M floorless is Kraken, and that's in like the 80s range, which isn't bad. You know, I like Kraken. And Medusa at Great Adventure I also really like. But they're not the most impressive rides to me. You know, I'm an airtime guy. I like an inversion, but the inversions on those rides tend to be a little drawn out. So I didn't have high expectations going into Hydra. I thought, at best, maybe it could be better than Kraken. I didn't even really expect it to be better than Kraken. But I get on this ride, and the JoJo roll is incredibly fun. Falling into lap bar restraints, not the lap bar, the over-the-shoulder restraints. I'm a hang time guy. I love hang time. And I'd had an experience with the JoJo roll on Copperhead Strike at Carowinds, and that one's really fun too, but that one can get a little bit uncomfortable on your thighs. I think hang time is the one type of force where you actually kind of do want over-the-shoulder restraints or a vest. And Hydra has the OSTRs that you're just kind of gracefully floating into as the ride tries to just drop you out of your seat, and there's nothing attached to your legs, so like your body is fully exposed to just float into the over the shoulders, and that JoJo roll is so fun. I would say already I like the ride more than Kraken, just because that JoJo roll is more interesting than any other floorless element I've ever experienced, and so much more fun. But when we get up the lift hill, we get down the first drop, and to my surprise, this first drop has real genuine airtime. Like, I'm lifting out of my seat into my over-the-shoulder, and again, these coasters aren't built around airtime, so I really wasn't expecting it. And I'm also not super used to the feeling of airtime on a B&M with restraints like this. So it's a really cool feeling of just rising up into those restraints with nothing touching your thighs. So that first drop is really good. We do, a couple inversions here and there. There's like the incline dive loop thing, which is super weird. Everything is profiled really weirdly on this ride. Like there's the Cobra roll that's twisted, which is super uncommon for a Cobra roll. I think that might be one of a kind. The Cobra roll itself doesn't do that much for me, but like, it's fun. It's cool, it's unique, gives you something to think about. And then after the Cobra roll, there's like 2 little airtime hills. One of them's twisted, one of them's straight. And depending on where I was sitting on this ride, sometimes this airtime hill delivered, sometimes it didn't. On my first ride, it did deliver, because I was sitting kind of middle back. So both of them gave me pretty solid pops of floater, which I really wasn't expecting, because Medusa and Kraken don't even have things that are trying to be airtime hills. Those are purely inversion rides. And it's kind of uncommon to find airtime hills on B&M loopers like this at all. So those are surprising. And they're pretty tight and small too. And then after those airtime hills, there's a couple... oh, I forgot the 0G roll heading to the Cobra roll. The 0G roll is phenomenal. It's almost an ejector airtime 0G roll, a little bit like a B&M version of the Mosasaurus roll, where you're whipping through it. I love a B&M 0G roll in general. They're always super whippy, super fun, and this one in particular was just phenomenal. Just getting absolutely yanked through it before coming into more like positive G-heavy moments. So that's another part of this ride that just has great negative Gs. But anyways, back to the end of the ride now. We have that one final inversion, and then a little like half helix back into the brake run. Little pop of airtime coming into the brake run that's a little bit twisted. And I'm sitting there just blown away. Never have I once ridden a B&M floorless and thought, I want to get back on this before I do anything else. And I don't even have part completion yet. Like, I'm still missing Possess and Talon. But in that moment, I don't care. I see an empty row, I get back on, and then I proceed to get 6 laps on it before I decide, like, okay, maybe it's time to go get Talon. But yeah, I loved Hydra. That was a complete shock for me. And it blew Kraken out of the water, so much so that Hydra is now, like, just outside of my top 30, and Kraken is still sitting in the 80s, and, like, Medusa. So, yeah. Totally unexpected. Nobody was preparing me for how good Hydra would be, and I don't think that's even a popular opinion. Like, I know a lot of people just kind of glaze over Hydra when they're talking about Dorney, but genuinely, that coaster is elite in a way that I didn't expect a B&M floorless to be capable of. So, yeah. Instantly just super glad that I made the trip out to Dorney to try this thing, even though it looked like nothing special. So anyways, I make my way over to Talon at this point, and, I get a couple rides in. So Talon is also really unique in that it's profiled completely differently from, like, every other B&M. It's sort of a midway point between the 90s inverts and then, like, Banshee, where they're going for a little bit more variety, maybe a little bit more graceful and a little bit less whip, mixing negatives and positives. This thing has airtime, in the back at least, which is crazy, because it's the only invert that I've been on that has airtime, let alone B&M inverts that are super not focused on that, usually more focused on inversions. But you've got the low to the ground helix that's really fun. The 0G roll on this ride is great too. It feels almost identical to Hydra's. There's an airtime pop coming over the station at that one part of the ride. Trying to think of other standout moments. Those are the main ones that come to mind, like the 0G roll, the low to the ground turnarounds, the airtime pops. But aside from that, every element on the ride hits. Like, there's not a single part of the ride that I think is wasted. Oh, there's a really snappy, like, I don't know if it's like a really tightly profiled corkscrew or like a flat spin or something. But towards the end, it's low to the ground. Kind of reminds me of the finale on Alpengeist. And that just jerks you to the side so hard. It's so much fun. So yeah, everything on Talon hits. Great ride. I wanted to stay on the train and lap it like I was lapping Hydra, but the operations were not nearly as good. And it was like a 5-minute wait between trains, so I'm like, I got another ride, and then I went to do other things. I still wanted to get on Demon Drop and Possessed. So my next stop was Demon Drop. And you know, this is a kind of a rare ride model. I think Dorney might have the last one, or one of the last ones. And it's a drop tower, but it's a really weird, almost coastery drop tower, where it drops you down on a track, and then as you hit the bottom, instead of just braking, you valley, and you flatten out on your back, and then you brake. And it's dropping you in this, like, box, so it's really silly and over-engineered looking. But I'm on the ride, and I'm actually kind of a little bit scared by it. Like, it's a big, imposing machine, and the view out over the park from it, feeling like you're kind of in this industrial torture device. It's actually super comfortable, but like it looks like torture. Then it drops you, and I got crazy like flowjactor on the drop, all the way down to the bottom. You're still kind of floating out of your seat as you start to valley, or as you start to like flatten out onto your back, and I think that's definitely the advantage of this ride over any other drop tower, is that you don't brake until you've ran out of speed already, pretty much, which allows the drop to just feel endless. I'd love to see this concept tried again, but with like a taller drop so you can really get that endless drop feeling. Definitely one of my favorite drop towers I've ever been on. So Demon Drop, definitely a must ride if you're at Dorney and it's open. So yeah, get on that. Then I had my second to last coaster credit to get, which was Possessed. So I've never been on an Intimate Impulse. I didn't get to do Volcano. I didn't get to do Wicked Twister. So this is kind of my first experience with the model. And it was really fun. I enjoyed the forwards launch, backwards launch. The launches weren't quite as much as I expected them to be. I'm sure they're punchier on rides like Wicked Twister that had a lot more speed to gather. But it was kind of an underwhelming launch. But aside from that, the spikes were fun. You get good floater on the back spike, and on the front spike, it's fun to be like whipped around as you're getting up. I will say, these restraints are not the farthest thing from an SLC. The forward spike was a little bit uncomfortable getting whipped into it at such a high speed. I definitely did bash my head around a little bit. Nowhere near as bad as an SLC. It still tracked like flawlessly smoothly. But just the forces of laterals on my head was like enough to get me ping-ponging between the restraints a little bit. But the backward spike was super fun. Almost gave me like a pirate ship ride sensation, where it's the perfect amount of floater of weightlessness at the top of those spikes. So I rode the back, rode the front. I think I like the front more just because you get to go farther up the twisted spike, whereas in the back you get basically none of the twisted spike. And in the front you still get a pretty good amount of hang time on the backward spike as well. Like, it doesn't feel as different as sitting in the back for the forward spike does. So yeah, Possessed was fun. Not one of my favorites or anything, but a good filler coaster. Adds to the lineup. Then I got my front row on Iron Menace, and it was significantly smoother. I enjoyed it quite a bit more. Still my least favorite B&M in the park, but like, it's alright. It serves its job. It gives you a dive. It's pretty fun. I'm glad that Possessed was able to stick around when they built Iron Menace too, because it complements the area really well. And the Steel Yard is a great area in general, so yeah, shout out. Then I went and I got more rides on Steel Force. Got 4 re-rides on that, making my total for the day 6. I think I got another ride on Iron Menace while I was back there too, because I was really enjoying it. And then I'm like, at this point I'm like, okay, I've gotten 6 rides on all of my favorite, well, 2 of my favorites. I still wanted to get more Talon rides before I left the park, but aside from that, I was basically just like, yeah, I'll get a few more rides on Talon. And then I still needed the kitty credit, so I'm like, yeah, I might as well do that. So I had to Camp Snoopy, or Planet Snoopy at this park, get the kitty credit, and it's pretty bad actually. I think that's my first like Zamperla kitty coaster, and it was jerky, it was rough. I really didn't like it actually. That was not a good experience. One of the worst coasters I've ever been on. But like whatever, it's a kitty credit, so I got it, forgot it, moved on. And then I went back to Talon to get my re-rides, and I had a great time. Definitely, Talon got better after every re-ride, I would say. And by the end of the day, I was sitting with 6 rides on Talon, 6 rides on Steel Force, 6 rides on Hydra, 3 rides on Menace, 3 rides on Possessed, and 1 ride on Thunderhawk and Woodstock Express, so not a bad day at the park. Not a bad day at all. Oh, and I did the Wild Mouse too, and that Wild Mouse sucked. I thought I hated the mock Wild Mice, but like Mauer's like knockoff mock Wild Mouse is even more despicable than a mock mouse, so that is also one of my least favorite coasters I've ever been on. And in fact, I might rank it all the way at the bottom of my list now, over the previously lowest ranked mock mouse that was down there. But yeah, that was my first day at Dorney. I got my Talon re-rides, and then I left the park like 3 hours before closing. You know, it's the middle of summer, so the park closes at 9, and I wasn't really going to get any night rides. You know, maybe a dusk ride at best, but I didn't feel like sticking around for 3 hours more just for a dusk ride. So I went back to my hotel, chill, kind of sleep off the headache, eat, rest. And that was kind of a thing throughout my first day. I was feeling like headachy and nauseous kind of the entire day, from the stress and the travel and being kind of beaten up by everything at Nick Universe and Iron Menace. But I wake up and I plan to meet my date at Dorney for the next day. And we had other stuff planned too, but we wanted a little return to Dorney. So the next day I'm feeling way better, and I enjoy the rides at Dorney even more. We get a lap on Menace, which is my date's first time in the front row on that ride, and this is like her home park too. So, yeah, we get a ride on Menace, we get a ride on Hydra, we get a ride on Talon, and we get a ride on Steel Force. We get 1 lap on each of my favorite at the park, and then we also do the Flying Buckets, which is actually my first time doing a Flying Buckets ride, the one next to Iron Menace. And yeah, we had a bunch of fun. Super chill morning. The park was slammed that day, actually. I had walk-ons all day, aside from like a 5-minute wait on Talon or like a 20-minute wait on the Wild Mouse the previous day. This day was like a 40-minute wait for Hydra, and even we waited a couple trains. Iron Menace was a walk-on, basically. Steel Force, we waited like 3 trains. Talon, we waited maybe 20 minutes. But by the time we got to Hydra, the crowds had really picked up, and that was like a 40-minute wait. So definitely glad that I got all my marathoning in the previous day. And then we leave the park, we go do other stuff. We just, you know, we hang out, we enjoy the area, you know, have our little date, and then I take my bus home. And unlike the trip up, I have no problems with my layover in Newark. I get out of that place just fine, and I head home. So, overall thoughts. Dorney is an awesomely underrated park. The top 4 the top 3 is fantastic. I would argue that Talon, Steel Force, and Hydra are all elite, and that shocked me because I'm not a big B&M looper guy. Alpengeist is my highest rated B&M looper, and it's still just barely in my top 30. And like, Talon and Hydra didn't quite reach the levels of Alpengeist, but for what I expected from them, just being like random B&M loopers in a pretty insignificant location that aren't like crazy stat monsters or anything, they're just, you know, humble little loopers. They are incredible rides. Steel Force is low-key better than like half of the B&M hypers I've been on. If anything, just for its uniqueness and its strength of force. It's definitely less polished and perfect than a lot of the B&M hypers, but it has a lot of character to it that those rides sometimes lack. Menace is a good supporting coaster. Possessed is a good supporting coaster. Does Dorney Park, could it benefit from like having an elite coaster, like a super elite coaster, like an RMC or a Premier launch or something like that? Absolutely. But for what it is, I think it's super easy to have a great day at Dorney Park. My lines were like nothing on my first day. The weather was great. The park layout's really good. The vibes are good. Operations are pretty good. Yeah, just a great park to be in. I'm kind of mad at myself that it took me this long to get to Dorney, and I'm thinking I might actually come back when I was thinking this might be like a credit and forget it kind of park. But I'm definitely going to be craving Hydra and Talon for re-rides at some point. So yeah, definitely make your way out to Dorney if you can. Not a lot of people talk about this park, but it deserves some more recognition because it's a nice park in a nice place, and it's not that far from Great Adventure if you're doing like a road trip, so check it out for sure.